Former Prince Andrew, now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is in police custody this morning. This on suspicion of misconduct in public office after revelations found in the Jeffrey Epstein files, the latest tranche that was released by the Trump administration. His arrest comes about 2 weeks after an anti-royal organization called for police to investigate those documents, indicating that Andrew shared confidential government information with Epstein when the royal worked as a British trade envoy. Judge Andrew Napolitano is our senior judicial analyst on this. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you. Several questions that I have. Let's start with the arrest itself, not just the surprise of it, but your thoughts on how this went down.
I didn't realize that he was arrested at Sandringham, which is very significant. That is the king's personal, private property. The police cannot enter the king's personal, private property without the permission of the king.
But he says he didn't know about it.
It's hard to believe that he didn't know about it unless one of the many, many people in his household gave the police permission to enter. Now, this is not the same place where the king lives, but it is the king's private property. And British law specifically says to enter that property, the king or the queen, unless it's to save a human life, the police need permission. So somehow they got permission from the king or someone in his name to enter that property at 8 o'clock in the morning, London time.
That's the first time I've heard that. Interesting fact. In terms of his arrest, there's also no charge. They've arrested him on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Does that stand out to you?
Well, the British government, the British procedures do not require the filing of a complaint, and they do not require an arrest warrant. The police can arrest anybody, anywhere for anything, except on the king's property, on their own belief that they have a basis for the arrest. And then they can detain him for 96 hours before bringing him before a judge. Is he entitled to a lawyer? Yes, his lawyers are there with him. Is he entitled to have the lawyers participate in the interrogation and say, don't answer? Yes. Is he entitled to remain silent? Yes, he is. I suggest to you that what they are asking him about was there a quid pro quo? Did you give confidential British government information about the acquisition and sale of gold and silver in return for sexual favors from Epstein?
That's an interesting point, because most people see the Epstein files, they see Prince Andrew arrested, and they automatically associated this must be on the alleged sexual misconduct. At least at this point, it is not. Again, the suspicion of misconduct in public office, particularly relating to, if I can judge with you, an email, or rather, confidential trade reports that were sent to Jeffrey Epstein allegedly in 2010.
Correct.
Are there any statute of limitations?
That is a great question, and until you told me ahead of time you were going to ask me that, I didn't know the answer, and I now know the answer. There is no statute of limitations in Great Britain for misconduct in office. So even though this was, if it happened, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
In America, it will be time barred by the 5-year statute. In some cases 7, but in most cases 5. I've never heard of no statute of limitations on a non-violent, non-death causing crime. Well, in the whole world, there's no statute of limitations on murder. But in Great Britain, misconduct in office, no statute of limitations. Now, listen, he has made many public statements denying the allegations of having sex with underage women at Epstein's behest. And he's free to say what he wants. If he makes those same statements now and it's untrue, he's got another series of crimes to face, because lying in an official interrogation is itself a crime.
Wow. What stood out to me, too, is the access that police will have. Because he was under arrest, at least has been reported, they'll be able to access his phones, what's in his home. Maybe they'll be able to get more information than they've had before. Is that a possibility?
I think it's, as we speak, they are probably, let's see, it's 11 o'clock here, so it's 4 in the afternoon there. They have been working for 8 hours going through his residence on the king's property. I'm sure by now they have his mobile devices and his electronic means of communication. So this is a very awkward position that he and his lawyers are in, because the police know a lot more about this than the lawyers do. So they're going to be asking him things that he doesn't realize they already know about him. They have already been investigating this for some time. I don't think the investigation began when the Epstein documents came out. The investigations probably began before that. And it's more than one police agency that is investigating him. He's being interrogated by the local police, but there are other broader police closer to our FBI, but not quite the same, that are also investigating him. He has to be meticulous about his answers. I am sure his lawyers are going to advise him to say nothing, but who knows?
Yeah. It's just wild to think that if this tranche of documents from the DOJ on the Epstein files were not released, what the 66th birthday of the ex-prince would look like. It's his birthday.
It is his birthday. I didn't know that when I heard this morning.
Yeah.
Why would they do this on his birthday? He's not somebody that's going to abscond. He's not somebody who's going to flee to a place that doesn't have an extradition treaty with Great Britain. He has a world recognizable face and name.
I know it's outside of the point, but it's also glaring you right in the face covering this story. I also covering the story here in the States. I wanted to play this clip from MS Now. Joe Scarborough going on a lengthy rant about the double standard regarding consequences here in the States as opposed to overseas. Listen to this.
All across the world, gravity still holds. Moral gravity still holds in government. You know, J.D. Vance always looking down the end of his little nose at Europe. Well, at least they have shame in Europe. If somebody was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, there are consequences. No consequences here.
To say that Joe is correct. Because of the statute of limitations, there are no consequences here. There may be political consequences, and there are people that have lost their jobs. The chair of one of the great law firms in New York City was forced to step down, but he can't be prosecuted for anything because of that statute of limitations. But the British folks take this far more seriously. They entered the king's property to seize his brother on the brother's birthday in a case that is lurid, to say the least.
Thames Valley Police, mind you. I mean, it's not Interpol coming in.
I know. It's just the local police department. When I looked this up, I found out that there are at least 5 other, and maybe 6, depends on how you count them, because some of them have 2 names, police agencies also investigating this. Now, sometimes, Sean, there's a rivalry amongst agencies, and they may have wanted to grab him before one of the others did, so they would have the lead in the case. That could also have been a reason why he was arrested on his birthday. They couldn't care less about the birthday.
Undoubtedly, history in the making, what we're watching. I got to wrap it up, but I'm unfamiliar with how the charges work. Would we find out a charge would be coming forth?
Oh, yeah. They're going to have to either release him
or
bring him before a magistrate. When they bring him before the magistrate, they have to have a charge.
Yeah, that's another story. So this is a developing
That'll happen.
story.
That must happen within 96 hours.
Within 96 hours. Judge Andrew Napolitano, thank you, sir.
You're
Great
welcome,
to talk to you. All right, appreciate it.